really welcome to all our media partners. I am delighted to see each and every colleague from our community and ethnic media sector here today. We'll start literally in 2 minutes. Just want to make sure nobody arrives too late to get the meeting. Okay, good morning and welcome. I'm Sandy Close with American Community Media, and really it's my great honor to welcome you to what I've come to see as the emergency room for keeping LA's street lighting going. Something we often don't think about, those great street lights, 220,000 of them across the city of LA. And they are what allow us the freedom to move with a sense of safety and a sense of visibility. And if you're a shopkeeper, you know your customers are going to be okay in the parking lot because those lights are on. But we take them for granted. And we are today at essentially the ER room, the emergency room of what keeps those street lights on. To be invited in, for me as a native New Yorker, is like going to the inside of the New York subways. A vital agency, a vital resource, part of the bloodstream that keeps the city healthy. The Bureau of Street Lighting is our host, and the people you'll be hearing from at today's briefing, who are also opening this whole field office for a brief tour after the presentation, at which point we will then break for one-on-one interviews and a light lunch and networking. So thank you all for coming. A brief overview before our speakers begin. In a few days, probably by April 17th, some 550,000 property owners, many of whom we serve through our media, will receive unique ballots. And the danger is they won't know why these are important. And like so many of us, what you don't know, you discard. It is up to us. I think we're a vital communication channel to explain ahead of time to these property owners and to the entire audiences we serve why this unique ballot, which is called an assessment ballot, not an election ballot. This isn't part of the June election ballots. This is a special assessment ballot. It matters. And what they need to know to make an intelligent decision about whether to approve a modest increase in the assessment property owners will be asked to provide. And get this, it's the first time in 30 years that they will be asked to do this increase. Unless the voters approve, the property owners approve, the city can't go forward with this assessment increase. So it's a very important decision property owners will need to make, but like many of you, perhaps, and like myself, I wasn't aware, and especially of how much more this agency has had to do without an increase in the assessment, how much they've had to do with less. So that's why we decided, let's come right to the heart, the ER of street lighting, and hear directly from the people on the front lines. And as they've said, this is the first chance they've had to tell their own story. So our speakers will begin, and we have in your programs expanded bios for each of the speakers. We have 4 speakers, and we will begin with Miguel Sandeline, who is the Executive Director and General Manager for the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Street Lighting. Mr. Sandeline, thank you for starting us off.
Thank you, Sandy. Can I borrow yours just in case I go like this? Good morning again to everyone. My name is Miguel Sandeline. I serve as the Director of the Bureau of Street Lighting on behalf of Mayor Karen Bass. I wanted to just start by saying thank you to Sandy and the crew for helping us set this up. This is important because, there's obviously a very large ballot, as Sandy mentioned, that's coming out. The thing that we want to make sure is people are informed. And so what I'm going to do is give an overview of who we are and what we do. I'm going to talk about the current environment, the situation environment and our issues, and then what's going to be coming up in the mail. And so I'm going to refer a little bit to this, so pardon me while I move around. I know there's some fixed cameras here, but I'll give an overview right now. And so here at Street Lighting, as very much its first name states, we handle the street lights in the city of Los Angeles. Our mission, our #1 priority is to make sure that we're able to light the way for Los Angeles. And a couple things that most people don't know is actually how we started off. Last year was our 100th year anniversary. We were born in 1925, and that was when a small pueblo called Los Angeles was looking at what it has, saw the lights of New York with Manhattan, the light bulb in Edison, and what was lighting up in the city there, and decided we actually deserve that too. And so we took the most dangerous thing at the time, electricity, the most innovative thing at the time, light bulb, and put it where people congregated. There's a couple things I like kind of sharing too in terms of pictures. And just this one, 2 pictures I like that are in our historical files. Here's one on the left of Miracle Mile. On the right is Sherman Way. There's a little advertisement here that says, locate your business here in the Miracle Mile. And what you see is improved roads, some sidewalks, and actually very ornate streetlights. So alongside the red car, right, we were actually one of the selling points for Los Angeles when it was very early on. That's actually how we started developing. So as the city itself was growing, right, starting to increase in size, so did we. Much of our actual early systems, and a lot of the ones that are ornate, if you look in downtown, Koreatown, right, Southeast LA, those are the ones that are actually historic lights that grew up with developments throughout the city. And that's primarily how most of our streetlights have actually come to be. Later in the future, we developed and installed them themselves, but ultimately what I'm saying is it's been tied to the property, the development, and how we grew up as a city. Just one thing I like kind of highlighting, there's a report that intrinsically kind of shows what kind of people feel. It's one of the purposes of street lights. Back in the day, do street lights actually reduce crime? There's studies from Chicago Urbanlands that you all can look up. There's actually reductions with adequate lighting, and you can all share that later on too. The Bureau of Street Lighting today, as I mentioned, we grew up with the larger city of Los Angeles. It is a quilt of approximately 250,000 streetlights tied together by about 9,000 miles of conduit underground, 27,000 miles of copper wire that ultimately powers the system. It's fairly large. It covers 2/3 of the city itself, 470 square miles. And so some of the things that we do as part of our core service, we replace poles, right? So the kind of structures that you see above ground, obviously the luminaires, the LED lights themselves, and the conduit, those are the basic kind of elements of the system that we're under, that are under our purview that we actually replace over time with life cycle replacement programs. What you're sitting in today is the heart of our bureau. It's our main field office. We have a total of about 185 field staff, around 150 vehicles or so. In total, we deploy about 35 electrical crews that ultimately repair the street lighting system itself. This yard itself is about a 5-acre yard. We have 2 smaller satellites yards that we have in the valley, and the west side of LA that we actually use in order to deploy more localized crews as well. One thing that we'll actually be talking about in detail too is some of the things that we've been doing in order to reduce kind of our costs, increase our efficiency. Fabian will be talking about a lot of that. But some of the things that we're doing in-house now that we'll show you as well is that we actually have almost like a forge or welding area over there where we've been able to drive costs of some of the materials that we buy from. A classic example is the base door. That's essentially a piece of metal that is used at the very bottom of the street light to seal handholds. Those things we were buying off the shelf for about $125. We now manufacture in-house between $5 and $10 or so per pop. And then ultimately, and some of the other newer things that we're doing is actually 3D printing. And I'll let Manny talk about that. That's his thing that he's trying to do as well. So we do have our own set of issues. As I mentioned, we grew up in the city, right? We now cover 470 square miles of the city of Los Angeles with about 185 people that are covering the entire service area itself. Some of the things that we've been seeing is obviously increased service requests from our constituents. Right now, our official repair times that are out in the world that I talked about in council before council is a year. So if a service request actually comes into the Bureau of Street Lighting through 311 or other means, it actually takes us about a year in order for us to actually repair that incident itself. Some of that are twofold, partially because of deferred maintenance and other issues, and other system issues, and also the rise in theft and vandalism that we see prevailing today. Yeah, these are just some of the charts we've had for the service request backlog, where back a couple of years ago we were below 10,000, so it's risen to around 32,000 service requests now for the Bureau of Street Lighting itself. What the service request itself doesn't necessarily show as clearly, so one thing that we are cognizant of, the main pieces of the infrastructure that we care about the most, the light bulbs, the poles themselves, those are things that we unfortunately we are trying to replace as well. Just from the fact of our aging system, we actually have half of our entire lighting LED bulbs itself that are out of service life, approximately around 18,000 poles or so that we're going forward as well. So, go ahead. Yes, I'm getting there right now. And so with these, we're actually in the near term, what City Council had approved us to do was go forth with a ballot measure to improve the assessment, or actually to right-size the assessment. This ballot ultimately is going out to all of our property owners. Again, I mentioned before that the street lighting system itself is tied to property and property owners. This will go directly out to property owners. About 500,000 ballots or so will be mailed out April 17. On April 17th, will be the start of the voting period. There's a 45-day voting period. We would hope that all the ballots will be returned by June 2. That would be the end of it has to be on or before June 2 for all of our ballots, and in order for it to be counted. And once that is actually received by the City of Los Angeles, we're going to take a couple weeks to actually tabulate the votes, present the results themselves to City Council. So I'll pause there just because that was a quick overview, and I can hand it off to then Fabian to just kind of give an overview on what we're doing for some of the larger system work, and I can come back with any questions.
No, I don't need it. Thank you. My name is Fabian Sheng. I'm the Assistant Director and Chief Engineer for the Bureau of Street Lighting. I've been with the Bureau for over 25 years, so I've seen a lot of change. But this is one of the most monumental times that we're facing, in terms of growth, in terms of the innovation, in terms of new technology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Aside from the fact that we have been dealing with aging infrastructure, innovation has been part of the core, thinking of the Bureau of Street Lighting. We're innovative when we were established. We're innovative when we started doing, variety of different goals throughout the city. But recently, innovation has resulted in being more efficient. Back in 2008, we were the first city, one of the first cities that changed all the street lights to LED technology. Now, what that did was not only increase the lifespan of the fixtures themselves, but also reduce our energy costs by $10 million per year. So just by that number, we're able to invest that money in the programs.
Could you repeat that again? Because that's such an important data point.
Yes. So the LED program that was started in 2008 and completed probably in 2018 or so, realized $10 million of energy savings per year. That's $10 million that we don't have to pay because of reduced energy costs of the LEDs. In addition to that, there were additional savings from the maintenance side, because what fixtures that will last 3-4 years, high pressure sodium, high intensity discharge lamps, now are lasting 10 plus years. The LEDs are lasting 10 plus years. So we had a reduction in maintenance costs and also in energy costs. So that's a big savings for the Bureau.
For context, we spend about $15 million a year annually on energy costs today. So if we had not done the LED replacement, we would be seeing a $25 million cost in the total energy budget. And the assessment itself, I forgot to mention, that the current assessment that we collect in the city for streetlights alone is about $45 million. So that's a good job.
Yeah, thank you. So what that allows us to do is have increased electrical capacity, right? That gives the ability to utilize our street lighting system for other purposes. Most recently we've installed about 1,000 EV charging stations attached to street lighting poles, publicly owned, for people to use in the right of way. So that's one advantage or one result of the increased capacity that we've been able to achieve, by reducing the energy consumption of the systems. In addition to that, with new technology, the new things that are coming our way, have allowed the Bureau to be used as a platform for different things, right? For sensors, smart city infrastructure, the EV charging stations, different type of cameras, detectors, pedestrian cameras. So all of this to say that the Bureau of Street Lighting is it's providing more than lighting, right? What was a one point type of organization, right, has grown to provide a lot more than that. So those are a few of the examples that we've been dealing with. One thing that I also want to mention is that, aside from the technology, aside from the number of lights that we have, we're proud that our system has over 400 different styles of poles, right? That is nowhere to be seen in any part of the world. For the most part, every community has a distinct pole, distinct lantern fixture that really identifies the neighborhood. So people are very proud of that, and we embrace that aesthetic, that historical nature of the street lighting. And you have seen some of the examples, and if you have time later, you'll see a great display in front of our yard, created by an artist, which displays a variety of street lights that we have out in the field. Some of them are no longer in service, but it just shows you, what we have done over the last 100 years. So aside from the innovation, that's not to say that there are some issues or some key challenges that we face. the LED, while the LED program was a great success, over the last 10 years, we're at a point that most of these lights have reached their end of life. So 10 plus years, some of them 15 years, have need to be replaced. This is something that we currently don't have funding for. We've been able to change some of those lights to reduce some of the energy, but at the bulk of the system, as Miguel mentioned, about 100,000 of those lights need to be replaced. So that's one thing. Additionally, the poles, as you can imagine, it's 1925, now we're in 2026. Some of those poles are quite old, right? They need to be replaced. The standard, the engineering standard is about 75 years, of age for these lights, for these lighting poles to be replaced. So that's something that in the past we used to have a pole replacement program, but it was eliminated due to the recession, and we haven't been able to get additional funding for that. So that is something that's extremely important and reduces the liabilities for the city. Additional from that, something that you don't see is what's underground, right? The conduit system, the electrical conduit system that we have, 9,000 miles of electrical conduit. That electrical metal pipe that's in the ground, corrodes with time, with water and the elements. So that's something that needs to be replaced as well. So part of the strategy of the Bureau will be to, as part of the pole replacement program, replace some of the aging conduit that we have in the city. So because of these challenges, we're faced with trying to balance what we can do with the money that we have, right? So we're still trying new technology. Most of you probably have heard that in the last couple of weeks, an announcement was made to invest in solar lighting. So that is something that the Bureau has done, for the last 10 years, believe it or not. We started doing some solar lighting installations at bus stop stations, some bike paths. But now the technology, allows us to do more extensive deployments on local streets, right? To be able to turn the lights back on. So that is something that we have done over the last few years. We have some current investment that the mayor and the city has put forward, and there's additional money being set aside for that. But that's something that we're currently looking at that, and that will reduce, that will bring the lights back up right away, and it will reduce the number of maintenance and outages that we have in the city. So that's something very important that we're looking into deploying further.
So the future of keeping pace with technology, let alone innovating to keep the costs down, is something the Bureau of Street Lighting is very proud of what you're accomplished, but the aging of the street lights and the dramatic need to repair and innovate is very pressing.
That's correct. And we'll continue to do so. I know Manny is going to talk about some other innovative things that we're currently doing that go beyond the engineering and actually the field work, how we get more for our money, and he's going to explain some of that. But that's what I have for me, and I'll be here to answer any questions after the talk.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Manuel Reyes-Hago, and like you said, I'm a street lighting, maintenance, and construction superintendent. I have 20 years experience in the Bureau, and I'm going to be going over what makes up a street lighting system. It's not just a pole and a bulb. A lot of that, people have that misconception. How long does it take just to fix a bulb? How long does it take to fix that pole? There's a lot more components to that. First off, we go with, we have a shared service point that is provided through water and power. We work in conjunction with them to provide us that power source, and then everything else past that power source belongs to us. The conduit in the ground, the wiring in the ground, the foundations, the pole itself, the luminaire, all that belongs to the Bureau of Street Lighting, and that's what we're in charge of taking care of. Also, there's lights that are on utility poles. Those do belong to water and power, right? And then also traffic signals do not belong to street lighting. Though that's another misconception. We have a lot of our infrastructure that's buried underground. Our conduits underground, we call them pull boxes, which is pretty much a junction box. To give you a reference, house. We have a junction box behind the outlet. We have a pull box that has all our splices in and our safety components to keep that light on and running. Other than that, we have different types of work that is required to maintain our system. We have routine maintenance, which could be PO, burnt out luminaire, bad photocell, maybe a wiring is grounded out, something simple like that. That's regular maintenance repairs. We also have system failures, which is like circuit outages, which could be anything from a ground is open, somebody's working in the area, they cut our conduit thinking it's an old sprinkler line or abandoned line. This is why it's very important to have Dig Alert, 811. We could mark our utilities. So we have that. We also have major repairs. We have post hits, right? Vehicle gets in an accident, knocks down a pole. We have to respond to that. We also have, like I said earlier, conduit hits. If you could have a high rise and being built in downtown, and we have conduit in the street, more than sidewalk, and our conduit could get hit in the process of that high rise getting built. Most of them, people's personal driveways, if you're ever redoing your driveway, we also have conduit running through the sidewalk as well. So a lot of times we get hit there. To remember, this system also works kind of like Christmas tree lighting. If you hit one portion of the circuit, the rest of it's going to go out. So if our system gets affected at the beginning near the power source, the rest of the circuit's going to be completely out. So those are the type of things that we face. Another one is wire theft, power theft, which is a big rise right now, big problem that we're trying to control. And that pretty much covers all the types of work that we do. Another thing that happens is our system ages, right? A lot of the system has been built since the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and it's still working as we speak. The conduit's the same, the wiring's the same. We have to upgrade that constantly. So that's one of the challenges we face, that as our system ages, the repairs become lengthier, right? It involves more resources to make these repairs, which we're struggling to keep afloat. And that's pretty much it for that section. What we do right now, what we're really good at is doing more with less. Like they were covering with the budget constraints and our limited resources, we have to be real strategic on how we deploy our crews. And we've been coming up with different strategies on how to limit the cost of the repairs by making a lot of stuff in-house. One of the things that's helped us start innovating inside of FOD is our plasma cutter, right? Plasma cutter helps with the weld shop, produce a lot of the materials that we use on a daily basis, the doors, base wraps, stuff that helps us secure our system after we make repairs. Another thing that we're getting into currently is printing our own pull boxes with the cement 3D printer, right? We're in the beginning stages of getting this technology down where we can pretty much have a production line of making our own pull boxes. Just to give you an example, I spend about $300 per box, and each system, again, on average has 15 to 20 lights. So if you multiply that by 300, you're spending about $3,000 to $4,000 just on pull boxes. That's not including the wiring, the labor, the cement, everything else that I need to secure that system, right? And this is where we got into this point where it's not no longer just regular maintenance repairs. We have to also secure our system after we make these repairs, because it doesn't make sense to make the repairs and leave it vulnerable still. So we have to we came up with different strategies. We call them restoration. We have restoration level 1, level 2, and then we also have fortification, which is for the most extreme scenarios.
Can I interject real quick, just because I want to talk a little bit about what Mandy's talking about, because we have 250,000 street lights throughout the entire state of Los Angeles. In addition to the 250,000 street lights, there's probably around 500,000 pole boxes, those access points that Matt is talking about. I want to be very clear, the street lighting system is working actually as designed. We must remember that it was designed 100 years ago, and technology back then obviously was different, right? And electrical systems finickier, as Fabian was mentioning, the bulbs would burn out faster. We're getting to a point where we're replacing all these things, but now they're becoming points of vulnerability. We are securing them using many of the different methods. We look at data to make sure that we deploy our resources in places that need it most in terms of repairs and multiple service requests. We're using every form of technology from solar to 3D printers. We're using new engineering standards. Every single new street lighting system that's being built today is built to the highest standards now of security and function. We are also, as we repair, we're securing things in a way that consistently evolves how we're actually doing the out in the field work. From these pull boxes to burying, camouflaging, even creating, using these plasma cutters, these fairly intricate kind of protection wraps around our system. So multiple kind of strategies that we've been employing now to be as effective as we can.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Buenos dias a todos. Yes, I am Sylvia Torres. I've been here since 1992. I started as a student worker, and I am the person in charge of the whole operation, field operations. I oversee the hands-on work essential to our city's infrastructure that keeps our streets safe and our neighborhoods lit. We currently have close to 180 field personnel, like Miguel mentioned, allowing us to deploy approximately 35 crews on a good day. Our strength lies in our technical diversity. These crews are a coordinated force of streetlight electricians, assistant electricians, and electrical craft helpers, working in tandem with skilled welders, cement finishers, and maintenance and construction helpers. I also have a staff that is part of the warehouse and the front office, which are essential support for our operations. Despite the dedication of our teams, we are currently severely limited by our current staffing levels, like Miguel had mentioned. We have lost approximately 22% of our field staff due to budget cuts and the loss of personnel transferred to other departments. This reduction comes at a time when our workload is increasing due to aging infrastructure and rising issues related to vandalism. We are essentially being asked to do significantly more over a wide area with nearly a quarter less of the personnel we had only a few years ago. We are responsible for a vast service area stretching from San Pedro to the south to the valley and from the Pacific coast to Alhambra and East Los Angeles limits. It's a very vast city it's allowed to cover. Our response times have been greatly affected. We are constantly struggling to balance routine maintenance requests with urgent emergency repairs that is taking longer than we would like to complete this task. You know, we wish we had more personnel. I get a lot of phone calls for constituents, you know, wanting to have the lights back on. But it's very hard when I'm limited on resources that I can go ahead and deploy. And so it's taking us longer for us to be able to get those lights back on as we wish we could. Despite these challenges, we stay dedicated to this task at hand. Our teams takes great pride in our work and in our mission to restore streetlights for the community. There's a profound sense of accomplishment when residents thank us for making their neighborhoods feel safe again, allowing families to walk together at night with proper lighting to guide their way. Hopefully we can bridge the gap between our current limitations and our missions. So hopefully the assessment goes through, and I'm looking forward to one day that I can say your lights will be back on within a week or within a month.
There had been mention of 100,000 street lights that are up for replacement or updating. Isn't this an opportunity instead to look into a pilot program of replacing them with the next generation of street lights that could last for like a generation, almost 20 years, right?
The short answer is yes, and the Bureau itself adapts and adopts technology of all ranges. we're soon to be one of the largest solar and battery operated streetlight installation in the nation, right? We went to LEDs first. We're looking at any other type of technology. We're actually very open to that. We have our own testing and standards that actually receive it from manufacturers. So if there's anyone with a good idea or a good product out there, those are things that we're actually looking at to build into our standards.
That have similar or have implemented next generation of street lighting?
Yeah, yes, and both inside and outside our borders. What I mean by that, we look internationally, we're actually one of the best practices cities. Other cities like San Jose, San Diego, anything with San in it, I guess, calls us on occasion to kind of get our feedback on it. We also look internationally to see what the latest standards and practices are. So those are always part of our dialogue and discussion.
Okay, Sunita, you are the next, and then we go to Araceli, and then go. Great.
Yes. Phoebe, you had mentioned solar lighting and that you are looking to that, but there are issues with solar panels. Could you talk about some of the challenges that you have with solar lighting and how broadly you expect to implement that throughout the system?
With or without a passage of this
Yes.
assessment ballot?
Yeah, so I'll start with the last question first, which, we have done a preliminary analysis as to how many streetlights could be feasible to be retrofitted with solar lighting, right? Because of the current technology and limitations of the solar lighting in terms of battery and illumination levels, we have identified about 30,000 streetlights that could potentially be converted to solar lights, right? That's just a kind of off the bat preliminary analysis. Without 60,000. Without an additional analysis, we're not going to be able to discern what the real number is, because there's going to be issues around the existing infrastructure. There's going to be issues about shades or trees that are impacting the installation of the solar. In addition to that, we have to be mindful that we have to install these where areas were fairly lit by the sun, right? That's not to say that we're looking into every location, every option that we have to install these, right? So we're looking into new technologies. We're looking into different manufacturers. One thing that I did want to ask to the previous question is that we're looking into implementing not only the latest and greatest, but also things that are going to reduce our energy costs, right? So solar is one option. Some of the latest and greatest that we're looking into is introducing some sort of dynamic lighting, right, or color lighting that we can install in different parts of the city to create a sense of community, to represent different holidays, or really to give the community another thing to look at it at night. So we have done that, some pilots in different areas and other passes. That is something that we're looking at as well.
Araceli Martinez with La Opinion. This question is, I think, for Manuel. Manuel, if I'm sure, I believe you mentioned that the water theft is increasing. How this problem is impacted to your department, to the city, and if because I know that the city council have approved different local laws in order to prevent this. So can you elaborate about the losses and the impact, please?
Yeah, one of the major impacts that copper wire theft does is our response time. So like how they were saying earlier, it takes us about, on average, a year to respond to any lights out incident. So on top of that, we have to go out and make the repairs. Once we make the repairs, we have to also secure.
Talk about the repair, because again, most people don't know what the repair is.
Yeah. So the repair, we initially have to send a crew out to check, to inspect the area to see what's going on. Based on their inspection, we might have to come back to get additional resources like welding, right? That's a separate crew. Cement, that's a separate crew. On top of the wire cooling crew that secures the system and puts it back to normal. That's the hardest part. We are so spread thin when it comes to cement and welding support. There's about 8 to 10 welders that take care of the whole city of LA. Same with the cement crews. We're very limited. They have to juggle all these different locations, all these different projects, all at the same time. And so far, we've been really efficient with what we have, but we do need additional support in order to keep up.
So what's the difference between an LED replacement and the time it takes for one crew versus the number of people and the...
On average, before, average repairs would take about max a day to figure out the problem, maybe a couple hours if you're really involved. Now it takes days just to figure out what the problem is, right? A lot of our infrastructure has been secured throughout the past 5-10 years. A lot of stuff's been buried, cemented, encased in steel. And in order to troubleshoot, just to figure out the problem, we have to open all these locations up, which delays us
More costly.
more costly. On top of the delay of time, the cost just goes up.
Right. I want to make sure we get to everybody's question. Nestor.
Nestor Fantini from Hispanic LA. And if the special assessment is approved and the initiative goes through, then my understanding is that you have 30 days to determine where this is going to be implemented. My question is, where are you going to get the data to actually determine where you're going to do the work? And second, isn't it a good idea to go and talk to the neighbors? They know best. And we have about 100 neighborhood councils in the city of LA, 100 neighborhood councils. They are the closest in terms of understanding and knowing where this problem is.
So with regard to, if I'm understanding correctly, your question, once the should the assessment pass, it would be effective next fiscal year. So it would be almost immediate that we would then be hiring and doing augmented kind of resource allocation in order to do increased fixes. Yes, we are actually talking with the neighborhood councils. Yes, we are using as much data as we can and sharing that as well and understanding with our community groups. The special assessment does require us to give the benefit of the street lighting equally. So there is a sense of first, when the service request is in, that is the clock that starts. Everyone must receive the same level of service as per what the assessment is stated for state law.
Okay, Eugene, and then Fatma, and then I have a couple of questions I want to ask about the actual assessment ballot. Eugene.
Eugene Lemon, Panorama Media Group. Hopefully we will see the end of the tunnel solar lighting, but along this street we need real lighting. I live in the area, it's a Valley Village, and contacting many times with our council member Nazarian, and they just explained that it will take a year, maybe more, to repair it. So, couple questions. Number one, what's your relations with LAPD? Because we know that all these cameras were stolen. So, any measures? And city approved already $65 million, right, for allocate for this one. To me, it's just politics because election is coming. That's why they start working this way. So, what's the ratio between replacement of the solar to repairing the current lighting system?
Yeah, so I'll answer the last one first, which is your question around the additional resources that are coming in. And we're very thankful for the City Council and Mayor to help us with the new resources that we're getting. But ultimately, those are augmentations, down payments to things that we've seen in deferred maintenance and the issues that we have at hand. So, several years down the line, once these other systems are in place, we're going to have to start thinking about replacement as well. So this is where the assessment also comes into play for us for longer term kind of operation and maintenance so that we're able to respond and right size what the Bureau does for response as well. On your first question with regards to how our relationship with OID, we have been part of the Heavy Metals Task Force. We are obviously providing as much information we can. We're in charge of what we're in charge of, which is the streetlights, right? So we help the larger city as best we can. It's obviously a city with many other issues and problems as well. Within the purview of street lighting, we're very focused on what we do, and the things that we are stating in terms of the repairs, the strategies that we have are all very effective. Solar itself, 100% effective. There's not been an instance of theft and vandalism with regards to our solar system, and so we see that as an actual way out from this issue of theft and vandalism. With regards to all the fortification that Manny is talking about, 90% effective, right, for us to making sure that there hasn't been an additional intrusion into our system. It's been safeguarded since. And so all these, including design features, right, we're fairly confident on all the things that we're doing within the confines of our powers and our authority, and we're focused on that one as well. But we continue to work with, right, and Manny has on several occasions has helped with different cases that I guess we can't talk about because they're cases at this point with regards to theft and vandalism.
Okay, Fatma.
My name is Fatma Ati. I'm from Al Arabi newspaper. Thank you for giving us this opportunity today to learn more about our city and about the lighting in the city. My first question, what are the biggest challenges that Los Angeles Bureau of Street Lighting face in keeping such a large system running? And the second question, what's happened if we don't want the pilot this year, and how it's going to affect the community?
The last question is that if we don't...
If we didn't win in the pilot.
Depending on what the voters then decide, will be with what we have. We will remain within the confines of our budget. We'll have issues that we've already highlighted, so we expect then a year plus for all of our service requests and our ability to actually respond to street lighting outages. And I think with your first part of your question was... biggest challenges, thank you. The one thing I'll say is that I do find everybody, especially, I got to give a shout out to Sylvia here because she's our first woman superintendent. And I think this is probably her longest summer job, but she has a lot of dedicated people under her. And Manny was the one that actually proposed to me to go out for an innovation fund to go out and get the 3D printer, right? So we have a lot of people that are thinking outside of the box, and I think are good stewards of the system that we have, right? Our biggest issue is that the cost of materials have gone up 30% in the last 2 years, right? Our issues around staffing then prevent us from deploying as many crews as we would like in order to fix these lights. So again, from all the things that we see from the different strategies and tactics that we've used in the Bureau, we see it highly effective. It's a matter of scale now.
A question that we have time for 2 more questions, and then if any of the people with cameras have questions, please signal, but come on.
Good morning, my name is Pamela Ann Chang from the Immigrant magazine. My question tags maybe Fatma's question. Do you think you've done enough to educate and inform the residents so that we can get a yes on the ballot?
The people can vote however they want, just to be clear. But this is actually why we're doing something like this briefing. Because, you know, street lighting for probably, I would venture to say we're not really the top of mind when it comes to departments, right, or bureaus within the city of Los Angeles. We were quiet in the night for a very long time. But that's not the case anymore, I think, especially on how we're structured, right, where it's a special benefit to property owners. It's not a regular tax or anything like that. We're doing as much as we can to make sure an understanding of how we operate actually gets out there.
Could I insert a question before Nicole? What are we talking about in terms of increased assessment fees for property owners? The ballot will tell each property owner roughly how much their assessment would likely go up if it was approved. But none of us have yet asked, what's the price tag, roughly?
So I'll talk in terms of the larger assessment and then give examples of it. So currently what we receive for an annual assessment for the city of Los Angeles annual, it's on people's property tax roll, so we get it as part of the tax. The city of Los Angeles on average receives $45 million a year in order to operate and maintain its street lighting system. A few years ago in 2022, we actually did an analysis, an internal needs analysis, an operational study to see what it would actually take in order to run the larger street lighting system as a whole. Actually ended up being, from that analysis, about $125 million. There was a third-party report last year run by the CEO's office that analyzed it, and for the most part agreed with our analysis. This is why the ballot that will be going before people in next week, next Friday, actually, when we all mail them out, it will have a $125 million assessment as the total budget. What that means, and just to backtrack, as you said, it's kind of difficult for us to say this is what it is for. It's very specific, right, to the property, type of use, and how big it is. So every property will be mailed their very specific amount on their ballot. There's also a lookup for properties on our website now to help support it, so you don't have to look through the larger council file. That's the official record on our website, LAlights.lacity.org. We'll email to you. And you can actually look up the property there, and your property there, and see how much it is. On average, with the current assessment, this single-family residence, for instance, pays about $53 to $83 annually per year, or about $5 a month for the cost of streetlights in their neighborhood. The assessment itself, if you translate that to what the $125 million ballot is looking at, it essentially equates to about $12 a month, or an average assessment about $117 on an annual basis for the property itself.
Okay, and last question.
Is the street lighting and traffic signal light different?
Yeah, they are different. They're operated by different departments. You know, the Bureau of Street Lighting operates the lights that provide illumination. The Department of Transportation provides the lights that are, red, yellow, and green for the vehicle traffic. So it's two different departments.
I see. So the purpose of the ballot to increase the assessment increase on the property, on the value, on the tax is to do the street lighting. Is that going to be just for doing that temporary, and then when that's over, is it going to fall back, or is it going to stay there?
Well, the assessment is really to right-size the operations of the Bureau. So there's going to be an assessment in perpetuity that the property owners are going to pay, essentially to operate the system. And that means, replacing the street lights, replacing any poles or aging infrastructure, investing in solar technology, investing in smart cities. So all of that will be utilized to operate the system, the street lighting bureau efficiently.